We know American Hanukkah, which is due to its proximity to this other winter holiday you might have heard of. This little obscure thing called Christmas, right? Hanukkah, yeah, with my Santa kippah here. Christmas came this year. In 2027, first night of Hanukkah will be on Christmas Eve again. So every so often they coincide, but they have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Couldn't be more opposites when you think about it. So Hanukkah is not Jewish Christmas. There is no such thing. Hanukkah is a celebration of a miracle, but most people get it wrong which miracle it is we're celebrating. And you can tell by the food. Hanukkah is all about food that is fried in oil. Because of the miracle of the oil that lasted for 8 nights. It was only supposed to last for 1. That's great. That's not the story of Hanukkah. That is the story that everybody knows, but if you want the truth, you came to the right place. Hanukkah is actually the story of the miracle of how an underfunded, outgunned, outmanned group of rebels managed to defeat the world's strongest, most best-equipped army and retake their country. And for the first time in a long time, after the war was over, the Maccabees were victorious. The Jews had control of Israel for the first time in a long time, and they lost it again less than 100 years later, and it wouldn't come back until 1948. So 2,000 years would follow. But for a brief shining moment after Hanukkah, which begins in about 165 before the year 0, before the Common Era, the war goes on for a few years after the story of Hanukkah that we all know took place, which is the Maccabees rise up, they take out the Assyrians, the Greek Seleucids, who wanted to Hellenize the Holy Land. They wanted everyone to be like them, which is why I said it's not Jewish Christmas. Because the whole point of Hanukkah was staying true to who the people were in the face of overwhelming pressure, including threatening of their lives. All of the things that make a community Jewish were banned under Greek rule. No studying Torah, no circumcision of your kids, no keeping kosher. In fact, they sacrificed unkosher animals in the Holy Temple, just to make a point. And they sacrificed them to statues of Zeus and other Greek gods. It was about as dark a time as there ever was for the Jewish people. And unfortunately, a chunk of people decided to give up. And they said, you know what? We're not equipped for this fight. Plus, Greek culture looks pretty interesting. I think I'll go over to that side. And a bunch of the people did become Hellenistic. They took on Greek names and Greek attributes. And it was basically a war waged against Judaism itself, which if the Maccabees hadn't won, I'm not here to tell you this story today. It was a survival moment. So we have a high priest named Mattathias who sees this abomination, one of his fellow priests serving in the Holy Temple, sacrificing a pig on the altar. He can't take it anymore. He rises up and, as we say in the Yiddish, he schmeißes that guy in front of everybody and says, "Who's with me? Who's for God?" And the zealots that were true to their Judaism joined up. They formed the world's first guerrilla army. Not guerrilla the animal, guerrilla like the tactics. They would hide in the hills and come down and do strategic raids. This went on for a while until they were able to reclaim the temple. At which point we get the story that we know with the oil. Doesn't come till much later. They finally have the temple back to themselves, and they want to light the menorah as a symbol to the rest of the people. Hey, we're on the winning side here. Come join us, and let's finish the war and drive them the rest of the way out of the land. But the oil's only going to last for 1 day. They said, you know what? 1 day is better than no days. Let's show the people that at least for 1 day, the temple's back in business. They had to send a runner to another city where they prepared the very pure olive oil as prescribed in the Bible. It had to be done a very specific way. Had to have the seal of the high priest on it. It was going to take 2 days each way plus 3 days in preparation. The guy's going to be gone a week before he comes back with more oil. They said, light it anyway. It's better than nothing. And the second miracle is that the oil lasted for the 8 days, which is why we have the 8 nights and the 8 lights. But that's not the real miracle. The real miracle is that God was with a small group against impossible odds. That message still works for us today. To stay Jewish in a place that's overwhelmingly not, in some cases hostile, a lot of places in the world where it's not easy to be a Jewish person. We're blessed to live in America, or at least we have on paper equal rights and freedoms, but it wasn't always that way. There's a very famous picture of 1930s Berlin where there's a menorah in the window facing a building with a giant swastika on it. And the back of the caption says something along the lines of, their symbol says Judah's light will go out, and our symbol says no, the light will prevail. And of course, as we know, it was time, but we're still here. The other guys, not so much. So we had a question earlier about how you light a menorah. The menorah is the main symbol. Here's another lesson for you. A menorah is actually a 7-branched candelabra, but this one has 9. So menorah is the general word for any multi-branched candle holder apparatus. The specific one used on Hanukkah has its own name, and that is a Hanukkah, which will have 9 branches. If you ever look at Israeli currency or anything with the official seal of the country, you'll see the 7-branched one, which is the one described in the Torah. That's the one that was in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, the one they would have lit with the oil that they found at the time of the Maccabees. There's also in the Arch of Titus, which commemorates the Romans sacking the Second Temple in the year 70, and there's a picture of one guy carrying off the menorah, and it's 7 branches. So the only time you see a 9-branched one should be Hanukkah. The only time you see a 7-branched one is pretty much the rest of the year. So if you see a 7-branched one in Hanukkah, somebody's PR department didn't do their research. That's all that means. So all Hanukkiyot are menorahs, but not all menorahs are Hanukkiyot, if that makes sense. And 9 branches is only for this holiday. By the way, the rabbis couldn't agree on anything, including whether to light it left to right to left. One rabbi said it should only be 7 nights. So, well, we know Hanukkah is 8 nights, so what was the argument for making it 7 nights? Well, the miracle of the oil wasn't 8 nights. They expected the oil to last for 1 day. That's what the jar was. It was 1 day's worth of oil. Yeah. The fact that it burned on the first day was no miracle. It's the other 7 days that were the miracle. Every day that went beyond its expectation would have been the miracle. And the rabbis basically said, you know, you're right on a technicality, but we like more holidays, so 8 days it is. We got voted out. So technically, we had a disagreement back in the day. And 2 famous rabbis who lived at the time the Second Temple stood couldn't decide on how to light the menorah. Rabbi Shammai said we should start with the entire thing lit, and each night we take one away until there's nothing left. And you're thinking, wait, that sounds so wrong. Yeah, because we don't do it that way. Yeah. Rabbi Hillel said, no, you start with one and you build your way up. And they couldn't agree. There's no instruction from the Torah. This story happened after the Torah was well completed and sealed and the Bible was canonized. So how do we decide who's right and who's wrong? Hillel comes up with a beautiful argument that says in all other manners of holiness, anything that we're doing, we are always moving in an upward direction and increasing. We should never be associating a decrease or a downward movement with something holy. Therefore, we should be adding light each night, not decreasing it. And it was a beautiful argument, and it makes even more sense when you realize this is the darkest time of the year. It's not just the end of the month, which it is. The moon's going away. In fact, Rosh Chodesh, the new month, begins on Monday night, which means Saturday night and Sunday, there's no moon at all. Completely pitch black, and we're just past the solstice. In this hemisphere, that means it's about the shortest day and the longest, darkest night of the entire year. What better way to counter that than adding more light with our menorahs at the same time of the year? So Hillel won that argument. Hillel and Shammai were friends, even though they disagreed on everything. But we had a lot of soul searching to do with that. So we compromised on how we light the menorah. As we talked about earlier, we load the candles that way. So night 1, night 2, all the way through, but we light them newest one first, going the other direction. And that's more than likely to satisfy 2 rabbis who couldn't agree with each other. So they each they're both right. Right? What can you do? Right? That dreidel is a Yiddish word. It's a lovely word, but not everybody speaks Yiddish. So in Hebrew, this is a sivivon, which literally means a top that spins. Now, everybody knows dreidel is a game we use with the kids, and it's a little gambling involved in that, but there is actually a deeper meaning behind why we had this. As I mentioned, the Greeks banned everything about Jewish culture that they could legislate. You were caught doing any of these things, it was game over for you. So how are we going to teach our kids Torah and Judaism without getting in trouble with the Greek authorities? They invented this little gambling game that has 4 Hebrew letters. And they came up with a cover story. The kids are playing for coins because all Jews are compulsive gamblers, right? You don't want us to take all your money, Greeks. You should stay away. So the soldiers would come. They'd see the kids playing like this and playing with coins or whatever, and they'd leave them alone. But really, whatever letter it landed on, when the Greeks weren't looking, we would teach them some Torah based on that letter. So the odds of this are pretty good if you're the dreidel spinner. Again, if you're teaching kids game, you don't want them to lose all the time. So there are 4 possible outcomes. Only one is negative. one is neutral and two are positive. So again, not going to see any dreidel tables in Vegas anytime soon because the house odds are horrendous. They're going to be handing out coins all over the place. The 4 letters that are on a dreidel spell out an acronym, because if Jews love anything more than fried foods, it's acronyms. And it stands for, in Hebrew, Nes Gadol Haya Sham, which means a great miracle happened there, over yonder. That's true of 95% of the dreidels, but not this side of the table. This one has a different letter on it, because it is from Israel. Nes Gadol Haya Po, a great miracle happened right here. It's the word for here. But still, same idea. 2 positive outcomes, 1 neutral outcome, and 1, the P means you got to put 1 in. So it's a game of playing for Tootsie Rolls, chocolate coins, M&Ms, whatever you have handy. Usually the kids will do this while the lights of the Hanukkah burn down. The rule is the lights of the menorah must last at least 30 minutes. And you're not supposed to make any other use of it. In other words, it sounds like a great idea to curl up next to your menorah with a book and read by candlelight. You're only supposed to use that light to look at it and think of Hanukkah and the miracle and be grateful for it. You're not supposed to use it for lighting, like you use the flashlight on your phone, or to do any other thing. But playing menorah or playing dreidel in front of the menorah is a time-honored tradition. Usually the kids' attention span will be gone by 30 minutes anyway. So now to the coins. The 3rd symbol of Hanukkah is gelt, another Yiddish word that just means gold. Is it because Jews are really into money? No, but back in the day when you had a great military victory, as the Maccabees did, and you gained independence, which they did after the war finally ended, the first thing you did was mint currency. You got rid of all that old coinage that had the Zeus and the Greek guys on it, and you minted triumphant currency with menorah on it, and symbol of Hanukkah. And you can still find these coins. These Maccabean coins are out there. We have one of our members who owns one. It's pretty cool to look at something that's 2,000 years old and is still recognizable. And that's what Hanukkah was about. You played with those coins that were minted right then, about 160 BCE, after the war finally ended. Nowadays, the kids appreciate chocolate a lot more than they do playing for nickels or pennies. So there you go, because then after you finish playing, you have a snack.
But the tree of life now that we have out front, as of yesterday, the lights now are blue and white.
There you go.
So you'll see all the light Madeleine Pavilion, the front. It will be until New Year's Eve. This is the first time, I don't remember since I think I was alive, that Hanukkah went over New Year's.
Right.
It's rare. It will happen again. In fact, it will be a year. I want to say it's 2035.
I looked it up, 2045.
2045. Where
Yeah.
there's no Hanukkah, and then the next year there's 2 because it starts on January 1.
Yeah.
So that actually, when we think about 2025, it will have 2 Hanukkahs because we'll still be on day 7 when we get to New Year's, and day 8 is January 2nd, and then come December we get Hanukkah the sequel. Second time in the same calendar year. Because we're on a different calendar system, unfortunately. Which means if you ask a rabbi, when is Hanukkah 3 years from now? We go, let me look it up. Because it is hard to calculate. We lose about 11 days every year off the secular calendar, but then we have leap years on the secular calendar that mess it up, and leap years on the Jewish calendar that mess it even more up. They jump the calendar ahead 30 days, which is why it's late this year. We're coming off of a leap year. Everything was late. All of the Jewish holidays were in the month of October this year. There were no holidays in September, which is usually the month that's the busiest. Next year, we're going to slip 11 days from that. The year after, we'll slip another 11 days. And if we don't do something about that, before you know it, Hanukkah's in July. That's not going to work. So every couple of years, we have to kick the can 30 days, add an extra month to the calendar, and that'll make Hanukkah late. 2027, I can tell you right now, that's the next leap year because that's when Christmas will happen again.
Yeah.
First night of Hanukkah is on the 24th of December that year. So we'll be right back. I'll get my Santa Kippah going again, and we'll be all set. So I'll hand some of these out at the end. So you have lights to look at outside too. Every point of light gets turned into something special with these. So it's great to look at them
last year. This was I've never seen it in my life. It's actually really unique.
We upgraded it. We upgraded.
Oh, you upgraded it.
You got to check the new one out. So these make Jewish stars. I'll let you be my first person here. These make dreidels on every. You have to look at the menorah and you'll see it.
That's amazing.
And then keep these, and you can look at any lights. If you still have Christmas lights, holiday lights, the tree, whatever else. 2 more. So you play dreidels and borderlands.
Okay.
Look at it.
All right, now look at the points of light, and magic happens.
My God.
You should see
Then he's
something
not
around
seeing
each
it.
point of light.
Yes, I do. There's like a halo around them.
Yeah, but-
What's, can you see it? He might
Either
not
a
be able
star
to
or a
see.
dreidel.
He has no sight in one eye, so.
Look at that. Didn't know you were coming to a 3D movie today. Again, not supposed to be the hero of the story, so why did it become the hero of the story? Let me give you a quick little history lesson on why the oil became if you were giving someone an elevator pitch on Hanukkah on what it was in 20 seconds or less, you might say the oil lasted for 8 days, yay! That's not the right answer, as we've discussed. So when did the story change? The rabbis of the Talmud figured out early on that maybe we should have a backup story in case we were living in a country or subject to a king who didn't like the real story of Hanukkah. So I imagine it takes place something like this. The king is sitting on his throne one day, and one of his courtiers comes up and says, Sire, the Jews are having another holiday this week. Oh, wonderful. What's it about? It's about the time they rebelled and overthrew the government and kicked them out of the land.
Yeah.
Oh, really? So I imagine if you're the king, you might not be happy with somebody celebrating a rebellious holiday like that when God was on their side and overthrew the evil king and kicked everyone out. So it quickly shifted to, oh yeah, we're celebrating some oil that lasted longer than it was supposed to. And that was safe. Unfortunately, that became the popular culture understanding of Hanukkah. The miracle is the resistance of assimilation. It is the military victory. It's knowing that when you have God on your side, you can do just about anything. And it's a reminder to stay true to who we are. So here's another little trivia bit before I get into the food. We know the heroes of the story are the Maccabees. Everyone knows that. There's 2 books of Maccabees that are not, by the way, in the Jewish Bible. I believe they are in the Protestant or Catholic Bible, though. They're not canon books in the Jewish Bible, but they're important books. They're history lessons, basically. They're called the Apocrypha, which is a series of books that are not divine origin, but tell an important story. Josephus is the only other place we get our information, and he was a Jewish guy writing for the Romans, so a lot of his stuff is biased. So we have to take it with a grain of salt. So that's another reason, because there's conflicting information, we didn't want to make one of those books into something biblical in any event. Maccabees are the guys. Judah Maccabee, everyone know he's a leader of the brave band. By the way, you know how many Maccabees make it out of the war alive? None of them. 0. So they were heroes, but they all laid down their lives at one point or another. The war went on 5 more years after the temple was rededicated, so they didn't all make it out. Some in a lot of North African countries and in Israel and other places in the Middle East where there's still Jews, the big thing with the menorah is you're supposed to put it where people can see it. The idea is to publicize the miracle. So we're supposed to put it by the front door, in the front window. If somebody was driving by your house, they would look and you'd see the menorah. And they would either know what it is or they'd ask questions, and either way you're kind of spreading the miracle of the season. What we're not supposed to do is put a giant inflatable dreidel and blinking blue and white lights. It's kind of a Christmasization of Hanukkah. Really the only commandment obligation is to have the menorah in the window. Anything else is extra and not necessary. So in the houses in the Middle East, there's actually a niche cut into the front wall of a house for that 1 week a year when a menorah is going to be placed there, candles. I don't know about you, but in most houses today, putting candles where the draperies are, or where the cats can knock them over, or kids can get at them, dangerous. So an electric one like this might be used. That's what I do in my house, because I have 2 cats. And I know that they would burn down the house if they had the opportunity, in a moment's notice. And also because that way I can keep an eye on it. I know this isn't going to cause any trouble. If I had an outdoor niche like they do in Algeria and Israel, it'd be a different story. Then you can light candles and you're not worried about anything catching fire.
I have a little square, a box, which is a dreidel, and a handle that you could twist it with,
Yeah.
and the little pokey thing down beneath that it spins on.
They're all over the tree, right, Karen?
They're all over the tree. The whole tree is covered.
Stars.
Yeah. And then there's
Here,
the
look at
other
this
pair
one.
that
Yeah, I
are
see
the
stars.
dreidels.
I see.
We both got
I
stars.
see a few. Yeah, stars.
There
Are there other glasses?
I do, yeah, absolutely.
Right around it.
And we have a
That's
birthday
pretty cool.
girl here.
Everybody's
Very good.
I didn't bring that.
No, you have to look at it straight on.
Yeah, I didn't look at it straight.
Very nice.
Does it show anything?
Growing up, we're Jewish.
There you go.
Like you can see the stars.
Yeah, we
Yes,
invited
that's
to
what
the
it is.
neighbors.
They're subtle, it's not like normal light.
It's like halos.
Don't expect an LED or something. It's not like that.
The three of us. Ready, Laura? Get your dreidel. One. Oh.
Listen, I don't know, I'm doing something wrong.
Let's do that again.
We'll do that tonight.
Ready, Laura?
Have them all. Ah, there it goes.
Go!
Wobble, wobble, wobble.
Come on, gimble every time. Loaded dice.
Oh, there it goes.
I see.
Oh.
Look at that.
Falling asleep, yes, well.